All right. Well, good morning. Welcome to another episode of the Grizzly Cave. I am Grizzly Andrew. Hope everybody is doing good. I'm sitting here drinking. I'm going to give them a shout out. I'm drinking a C4 energy drink, zero sugar, popsicle cherry popsicle flavor. If you have never tried those, try them. I have tried other energy drinks such as Monsters. No, Red Bulls. Um, Before I was introduced to the C4s, I could drink the Rockstar energy drinks, and I think they're called NOSes or whatever. But, anyways, it just has really good taste to it. Considering it's 1:47 in the morning, probably ought not to be drinking that, but I didn't feel like drinking any more Big K zero sugar cola. So, anyways, so I'm going to do this episode on a promotion that has always fascinated me. Um, I mean, I'm a fan of classic old school wrestling, or wrestling as we called it. Um, my mama, God rest her soul, she always used to call it wrestling, but I was always a fan of the classic wrestling. Well, of course, when I was a kid, you know, didn't never heard of the territories. You basically, excuse me, basically all I knew back then was WWF and WCW, because around the time that I had started watching the show and became a fan, um, you didn't hear of these other, you'd never heard of territories or any of these other promotions and stuff. So, um, in 2017, I started to have a fascination with New Japan Pro Wrestling, and for a couple of years, I watched it. I always had it recorded on my DVRs, and um, I was just a big fan of the matches. I mean, they had old matches dating all the way back to 2012, um, and then they'd show present matches at their events and whatnot. And I always enjoyed watching the Wrestle Kingdom matches. My favorite, two of my favorite Wrestle Kingdom matches. Um, One was in 2017. It was Kenny Omega and Kazuchika Okada. And then for the 2018, it would have been Hiroki Goto versus Minoru Suzuki in a hair versus hair match. But anyways, I digress. So needless to say, I've always been a fan of Japanese wrestling. The matches are way better, especially with what I was watching back when I was keeping up with WWE at the time. Um, Heck, honestly, I thought their stuff was even better than AEW. But I fell out of touch with New Japan when, let's see, this would have been around the summer of 2019. I had DirecTV at the time, and uh, they were on the Access channel. Well, they wound up taking that off Access, and I was pretty bummed out after that. Um, so, needless to say, I didn't really watch much of Japanese wrestling anymore, but I did start seeing some of the New Japan guys that were showing up on AEW, and it was pretty awesome to see that. But anyways, 2 years ago, started. No, actually, let's go back a little further. We'll go back to 2021. The third season of Dark Side of the Ring had come out, and I still had DirecTV at the time. And that season three, stood out for a few reasons. They had the most episodes. It had 15 episodes. Um, I had an episode about my favorite wrestler, Ultimate Warrior, and I know I'm going to get a lot of heat for that. You know, let me explain. Was he a good worker? No, he was not. He was not a good worker at all. Um, He had a lot of heat with a lot of wrestlers back in the day. Um, there's controversy based on when he got suspended slash fired after the SummerSlam '91 episode or event. Um, I've seen interviews where I've seen shoot interviews where people talked about him. I even watched Ultimate Warrior's shoot interview. It was like a 2.5 hour shoot interview. Um, it wasn't with RF Video or Sean Oliver um, or the late Dan Marotti. I'm not really sure who it was with. But anyways, had that episode had about the plane ride from hell, the steroid trials, people I never heard of like Bruiser Bedlam. I mean, just and sorry, folks, had a bout with the flu a couple weeks ago, and it wound up attacking my lungs after all that. So please bear with me. Um, but there was an episode that stood out. It was the episode 10 of season 3 for Dark Side of the Ring. It was called Blood and Wire, Onita's FMW. And my first thought was, oh, geez, deathmatch stuff. Not interested. Um, so I didn't watch it. Well, fast forward to 2 years later, I had went on a AWA kick. And if you don't know what AWA is, it was the American Wrestling Association. It was a territory, um, the Minneapolis territory, although they didn't just wrestle in Minnesota. Their territory was rather big. I mean, it was kind of a precursor for when McMahon took over with the national expansion. Um, but there was a video called The Rise and Fall of AWA. So I watched it. Well, there were other related videos too, and it was about the rise and fall of FMW. So I wound up watching it. And I eventually wound up watching the Dark Side of the Ring episode on FMW, and I've watched other videos on FMW. And I don't know, something about that promotion just really stuck to me. I never could quite put my finger on it, but it might have been because, especially at that time frame, it was different. And you might could say it was a precursor for ECW and all these other independent promotions that specialize in death matches. Um, Myself personally, I'm not a big death match person. Um, I mean, I never was really into hardcore wrestling either. Like I said, I'm more of a fan of classic wrestling. I'm not knocking anybody that's a fan of death matches. I mean, if you are, to each your own, more power to you. Um, but this promotion, it's rather interesting because the founder, Atsushi Onita, he was he was not a really originally a deathmatch or hardcore guy. He was actually a wrestler for Giant Baba's All Japan Pro Wrestling, and he started out like all wrestlers do. Started out as a ring boy. Then he eventually became a wrestler. Had matches. Apparently, he had a feud with. When I say Chavo Guerrero, I don't mean Junior. I mean his father. Um, they had apparently a legendary feud back in the early '80s. Um, One thing about Japanese wrestling is they usually go overseas for an excursion for a certain period of time. It could be, I don't know, it could be 6 months, could be a year, couple years. Well, Onita wound up going to, and I'm and keep in mind, folks, I'm just my sources are from Dark Side of the Ring, the YouTube videos I've watched, stuff I've pulled up online. So, I mean, this is not firsthand knowledge. This is from research from other sources. Um, he went overseas and he went to a promotion in Puerto Rico. Now I can't say for certain if it was if it was the World Wrestling Council under Carlos Colon. Um, it could have been. I do apologize. I was unable to find that promotion that this happened at, but Onita was supposed to lose two straight falls in a 2 out of 3 falls match. However, Onita, whomever his opponent was supposed to be, Onita deemed him inferior. Well, he got beat up for his troubles. Well, um, I believe, don't quote me on this, but I believe Terry Funk was at this promotion when it happened. Um, I don't know if Terry saw it or was told about it, but Terry Funk was in that Dark Side episode, and he said, and I quote, that they rat packed him, beat him up pretty bad. He wound up taking Onita back stateside to Amarillo, Texas. Terry said, I always got a chuckle out of this. Terry Funk said that he, being Terry, spoke Japanese as well as Onita spoke English, and Onita spoke English as well as Terry spoke Japanese. But Terry Funk did say that he bought Onita a car, a used car, got him a job, and sent him on. Um, Onita wound up going to work for Jerry Jarrett's promotion. For those of you that don't know who Jerry Jarrett is, look him up. Um, if you do know who Jeff Jarrett is, Jerry is Jeff's father, in case you didn't know. Um, so he went to go work for Jerry Jarrett over at Continental Wrestling in Memphis. For those of you who may know who Jerry the King Lawler is, that's where Lawler was big at. Lawler was basically the Hulk Hogan and Ric Flair of the Memphis territory. Um, Onita team had a tag team with a man by the name of Masafuchi, and it was actually at this territory. So this would have been around 80, maybe 81, that Onita was introduced to like the Western hardcore style of wrestling. Give me just a second, and I will see if I can get this pulled up. Excuse me. Um, let's see. So doesn't give me a date, but late 70s, early 80s, him and Fucci had toured in Memphis, and they had actually won the AWA Southern Tag Team Championship 3 different times. Um, so there was a match that the Memphis territory liked to run, and it was called the Tupelo Concession Brawl. And I don't know if you are a fan of Jim Cornette or not. Now I'm going to say this: I'm a fan of Cornette just for his mind for the business. I've never met Jim Cornette personally. Um, I can safely say that he would not be a fan of me based on my religious and political beliefs, but in regards to um, where he stands on professional wrestling, I agree with him 150%. But I had overheard Cornette mention this, and the Tupelo concession brawl, it wasn't just a one time match. There was one in 1979. Jerry Lawler and superstar Bill Dundee took on Larry Latham. Um, if you follow classic wrestling, that was one of the Moondogs. I believe that was Moondog's spot. And Wayne Ferris. Wayne Ferris. If you don't know that name, hopefully you'll know who the Honky Tonk Man is. um, the greatest intercontinental champion of all time. Um, so, anyways, um, Onita and Fucci were involved in one of those matches, and I'm actually still trying to look up who they had a match with. Give me just a sec. See if I get this pulled up. They took on Ricky Morton, um, who is one half of the Rock and Roll Express. Um, I will say this: I did get to meet Ricky Morton and Robert Gibson one time back in 1998 in Hopkinsville, Kentucky, at the National Guard Armory. They had a tag team match with the Pit Bulls, and the Pit Bulls were known in ECW. I actually got to get my picture taken with the Pit Bulls as well, and those guys were monsters. Oh my God, freaking huge. But getting to have my picture taken with the Rock and Roll Express, I mean, as a 12-year-old kid, I mean, that was an amazing experience. I wish I still had the Polaroid picture for that. But anyways, Onita did say in Dark Side of the Ring that during that match, a lady had hit him with a high heel shoe, and he really at it, and this is in the early '80s. He really seemed to think that a hardcore style was maybe the way to go. So, anyways, fast forward, um, he wound up making his way back to Japan after his excursion. Um, let's see. He wound up going back in 19. Let's see. He was back in 1983. Um, unfortunately, though, he sustained a really bad knee injury in May of 1984. That actually is covered on Dark Side of the Ring. Onita said it was just a simple slip off the ring apron onto the concrete floor, and said he busted his knee up really badly, and then the bone, unfortunately, unfortunately, the bone was. He said you could see it starting to stick through. He did. He took about a year off to recover. He did try coming back in May of '84. Unfortunately, though, um, um, he had to be let go. His last match was December 2nd of 1984, and then on January 3rd in '85, Onita officially retired. Giant Baba did hold a retirement ceremony for him, which, um, if you don't know, Giant Baba had, according to rumor and innuendo, which I've never heard Onita say this in an interview, but there was a rumor that Baba had considered adopting Onita at one point in time. So I mean that kind of tells you the relationship that those two had. Um, apparently, Giant Baba had also given Onita, um, don't know the exact amount, but had given him a some money or some kind of payment just to help him get back on his feet. Um, I know Onita had worked in construction for a little bit, but he got injured at work, and unfortunately, he had to give that up. He wound up making an in-ring return in December of 1988, for Pioneer Senshi, and I think it was at this point he had kind of started to realize that he could still go in regards to wrestling, but he just wouldn't be able to do any high flying moves. He'd have to be more grounded. Um, so Onita would show up for a promotion called Universal Wrestling Federation, UWF, not to be confused with Bill Watts's rechristened Mid South promotion or the late Herb Abrams' UWF. This was a shoot style promotion that was based in Japan, and he wound up he was trying to work an angle, um, and he was asked to leave, but he wound up he wound up forming Frontier Martial Arts Wrestling. And the very first event they had was on July 2nd, 1989. And he took on a karate expert by the name, and please bear with me on the pronunciation, named Masashi Oyagi. And they had two more matches. One was called The Grudge in Nagoya and The Grudge in Tokyo. And both of those took place in October of '89. And it was basically worked shoot style matches. If you're, I'm sure you all have heard of shoot interviews where they basically shoot it straight forward. Same thing with shoot style matches. It's basically, well, actually, I don't want to expose the business too much, but look up what shoot style matches are, or work shoot matches, and that's basically what this was. But FMW basically became the first deathmatch promotion in Japan. Um, so there was quite a few names that you folks may know that were a part of FMW. Um, let's see. The original Sheik, which anybody that's a fan of classic wrestling will know who the Sheik is, and I'm not talking about the late Iron Sheik Khosrow. Talking about Eddie Farhat. He had the big time promotion up in Detroit, Michigan, I believe. He did some tours over there. Um, Onita actually knew him from whenever he was a young boy or ring boy in the All Japan days, back when the Sheik and Abdullah the Butcher used to have matches over there. Um, Other wrestlers, Tarzan Godo, um, Mr. Pogo. Like I said, Sabu was there. Mick Foley wrestled over there as Cactus Jack. Terry Funk, Chris Jericho, Lance Storm, the late Mike Awesome, um, Horace Hogan. I wonder if that worked for him, brother. God knows Hulk Hogan wasn't going to go to FMW, that's for sure. But if you ever get a chance to watch, they've got plenty of them on YouTube. Go to YouTube, look up FMW, and I mean, just watch some of these matches that Onita had with like Mr. Pogo and Tarzan Godo, Terry Funk, and the late Hayabusa. Who Hayabusa was actually my favorite wrestler from FMW, which I'll get to him here in a minute. Um, yeah, I mean they were just hardcore brawls. Um, a lot of the matches that you see Onita in, there's barbed wire ropes. Sabu himself said in that Dark Side episode that it sucks working with barbed wire, and that's kind of, a lot of the scars that Sabu has. Um, well, maybe not a lot of them, but some of the scars that he has came from FMW. He said himself that one night after a match, he spent all night at the ER getting stitched up, and he said that's what led him. After that, he started super gluing or crazy gluing his cuts, and he said he did that for the boys as well. He said it worked a lot faster than obviously he'd patch himself up. Speaking of patches, every time you saw Onita, he always was patched up somewhere, whether it was his shoulder, whether it was his arm, etc. Um, but then there were some matches that he had, and well, let me backtrack. There would also be other things added to the matches, like the ring would be electric. You know, the ring ropes would be electrified with the barbed wire. Um, well, actually, let me backtrack. They actually took the ring ropes down, and so the barbed wire was used as like ring ropes, and they were also electrified. They also had these bombs outside of the ring where they were, you know, platforms on the concrete floor surrounding the ring. And I think my favorite one was um, the time bombs, the smoke bombs that they would have steel barrels around the ring, and they'd be full of smoke bombs. And if there was a time bomb death match, uh, if you watched the match he had with Terry Funk, it was a time bomb death match. So this would have been around 1993, and he about 5 minutes before the match ended, the alarm starts going off. It's just blaring really loudly, and I mean, uh, it was loud on my TV screen, so I can only imagine what it sounded like to the fans that were in attendance in '93. Um, I think eventually they wound up shortening the time bomb length to like maybe 3 minutes instead of 5 minutes. But when the timer went off, the bombs, I mean, the ring was engulfed with these smoke with the smoke and whatever else were in these bombs. And if you were a fan in attendance, you really didn't want to be in the front 3 or 4 rows because chances are you'd get engulfed with the material as well. Heck, the referees for those matches, they always wore some kind of protective suit or whatever with a protective head covering and a face shield every match. Um, I mean, it was just different, you know. And I got to agree with what Mick Foley said. You know, WWE had become kind of homogenized. You know, WCW could kind of get a little crazy, but FMW, you know, but F to me, but I gotta agree, FMW just brought something different to the table. Um, I mentioned Hayabusa. If you have not seen the match that him and Onita had, look it up on YouTube. Um, about a 25-30 minute match, and it was actually Onita's retirement match. Took place May of '95, and if I'm not mistaken, I think it was at the Kawasaki Stadium. And Onita went over. Personally, in my opinion, I think Onita should have done the job for Hayabusa. They were actually planning on pushing Hayabusa as the ace of the company. And if you don't know, if you haven't heard the phrase "the ace of the company," um, that usually means you're going to be the next Hulk Hogan, Ric Flair. You know, you're going to be the guy to lead the company. The irony was about that retirement match is about a year prior, he Onita had lost to Genichiro Tenryu. Um, if you don't know who Tenryu is, he has made some apparent he had made some appearances for the WWF. He made an appearance at WrestleMania 7 in a tag match with Koji Katao against Smash and Crush at Demolition. He made an appearance in the '93 Royal Rumble match. He was also one of the 15 guys at the '94 Royal Rumble that attacked the Undertaker in Undertaker's casket match against Yokozuna. Um, He was also in the '94 Royal Rumble match. But fast forward a few months later, he had a match with Onita, and Onita had said that if he lost, he would retire. So Onita lost to Tenryu. However, he didn't retire that night. He went on a 1 year retirement tour. Um, that would be the equivalent. Um, I mean, it worked. I mean, I guess it worked, but it'd be like Ric Flair back at WrestleMania 24 when he lost that retirement match to Shawn Michaels. It'd be like him saying, "Well, I lost this match, but yet I'm going to go another year." Which I mean, we all know he wound up returning to the ring for other matches when he went to TNA. But anyways, so Onita has the match with Hayabusa. He goes over. He retires. He was retired for 1 year, and then he came back in '96, and he was around for about a couple more years. But I need to point this out. He had planned on shutting down FMW after that retirement match, but his stepfather had talked him into not shutting it down. He That way the wrestlers could still have a place to work at. So he winds up selling it to the ring announcer, Shoichi Arai. Now, to my understanding, I don't believe Shoichi Arai was, I mean, other than being an announcer, to my knowledge, he didn't really have any other wrestling experience, let alone did he have any promotional experience. That's to my knowledge, though. I could be wrong on that. Arai really wanted to push Hayabusa as the next ace of the company. Sadly, though, after Onita retired the second time, the crowds, I don't want, they didn't slowly dwindle. They like increasingly dwindled. I know about a month or so after that retirement match, there was a match that Hayabusa and Masato Tanaka had against Mike Awesome and Horace Hogan. I mean, it almost looked like an empty arena match that you saw for AWA's Team Challenge series. I mean, there were people in attendance, but it was definitely not the crowd size that it used to be. I mean, heck, Odita, could draw 40 to 50,000 people. FMW just wasn't drawing much after he retired. Whenever he retired, he was going to pursue his acting career. Apparently, that didn't really take off, and that's when he came back again. Um, One thing about Onita, actually, there's a few things about him I liked. His entrance music was Wild Thing, not by the group X that you hear in the Major League movies for, Rick Vaughn whenever he would make his walk from the bullpen to the pitcher's mound. It was actually sung by Joan Jett. Um, I thought that was really awesome. You kind of, and you saw that, many years later with John Moxley with AEW. So kind of a nice way to pay homage to Onita. Um, what's really sad is, they started to gain some ground when Onita came back, and um, he had he changed his ring attire, but um, before he retired the second time, his get up, he'd come to a ring with the white FMW jacket. Sometimes he'd have a big white robe over the jacket. But he always wore a white wife beater and blue tights and had his blue boots. Um, he didn't look like your typical WWF, and I'm going based on that time frame, late 80s, early 90s. He didn't look like your typical WWF guy that was, in really great physical condition and really big and strong and stuff. He uh, looked like you and me, and I think that's why he connected with the fans so well. But when he comes back after his second retirement, um, he looked more like Bret Hart with the gear that he wore. Um, Bret Hart had the pink and black, with the pink and black tights. That's what Onita looked like, and he also wore a black leather jacket. Um, but I mean, I think it was pretty cool gimmick. Um, well, in after Shoichi Arai took over, he brought in a fella by the name of Kodo Fuyuki to be his head booker, and Kodo Fuyuki wanted to rebrand FMW to World Entertainment Wrestling, WEW. Yeah. Well, Shoichi Arai um, didn't go along with that because he thought FMW still had some name value. And to be quite honest with you, I'm kind of conflicted on that. Um, yes, FMW had name value, but the dwindling crowds were saying otherwise. Um, they were also dealing with opposition from another deathmatch promotion called IWA Japan. I think maybe it's kind of like that show on Disney Plus for Marvel. What if? There is a possibility that maybe if they went to World Entertainment Wrestling, they could have drawn some they could have had some good traction with that. And they might have done better than they did um, compared to wrestling with the FMW uh, brand. But we'll never know. But Onita had said there were some things that was being done under Fuyuki's booking. There were urination angles. Wrestlers were getting urinated on. There was a match, which I mean, it's one of them things where it's hard to believe it, but unfortunately, it did happen. They show a clip of it on the Dark Side of the Ring episode, and there was a match between Mr. Ganosuke and well, I'll say Hayabusa, but he was wrestling under a different gimmick called H at the time, basically where he unmasked. Um, or AG Izaki had unmasked and performed under H. And Ganosuke put like a firecracker or something up up H's ass and lit it on fire while H was handcuffed to the ring post. And it's pardon my language, but what the fuck, man? I mean, that's just some messed up shit. I mean, I don't know. I don't think Vince Russo would have even booked that type of stuff. Well, I take that back. Russo might have. Well, no, no. Actually, I can't speak that about Russo because I never saw that happen. Now he had a lot of other bad booking ideas. But no. Thank God Russo didn't do anything like that stateside. Well, I take that back. Hang on. No, there was that angle with Val Venus and Kai and Ty and the choppy choppy off your pee pee. Yeah, yeah. Never mind. So yeah, Russo probably would have booked that. But I would imagine McMahon would have told him hell no on that. Excuse me. Um, but my thing is this, you know, and again, bear with me, folks. I know I could be scatterbrained, and and if for those of you that are patient enough to listen to all this, thank you. And I do apologize for being scatterbrained. But Hayabusa had all the tools in the world to lead the company. I think had Onita done the job, put him over clean, that could have told these fans that Hayabusa is the guy. And I think FMW would have had a strong following. Now, I don't know if this is true or not, but apparently there was professional jealousy between Hayabusa and Onita. I've never heard Onita say that, um, but I have heard that in some of these videos I've watched about FMW. Um, I know Onita, not Onita. I know Hayabusa was not a big Onita fan. I do know this though. I think Onita respected Hayabusa because he did help Hayabusa get some bookings with All Japan Pro Wrestling. Um, Now he wasn't over there on a full time basis. He was obviously still with FMW full time, and he was with them. He stayed with them to the very end out of loyalty, and you don't really see a lot of that nowadays. I mean, the one person I could think that was probably the most loyal wrestler to a company would have been, my all-time favorite wrestler, The Undertaker, Mark Calloway. I mean, that man was loyal to McMahon for 30 years. I mean, he's still loyal to him to this day, but I'm saying while he was on the active roster, he was loyal to McMahon for 30 years. Um, that's how Hayabusa was with FMW. And and if you get a chance to watch his matches, I mean, Hayabusa, yeah, he was a high flyer, but he wasn't a death match guy. But the guy could perform. He could put on incredible matches with anybody. Um, there is a there is a video on YouTube. It was from I can't remember the name of the actual VHS, but there was a VHS on Hayabusa. He had like three matches, and it's commentated by two guys from the states, um, doing voiceover commentary, kind of similar to what Jim Ross and Josh Barnett did for New Japan Pro Wrestling. But Hayabusa had a match with Masato Tanaka, Mike Awesome, and Mr. Ganosuke, and all three amazing matches. I mean, they were just incredible. They told good stories, and Hayabusa was an incredible wrestler. And the only biggest thing that really sucked was, and if you've seen the Dark Side episode on FMW, then you'll know what I'm about to talk about the tragedy that happened to Hayabusa back in October 2001. For those of you that are not aware of this, he had a match with Mammoth Sasaki, and um, one of his moves was a springboard moonsault. And if you're a fan of Chris Jericho, you you're familiar with the lion salt that he did, or that he still does. Well, that was part of Hayabusa's repertoire. Um, he went for a springboard moonsault. Unfortunately, he slipped, and when he went to do the moonsault, that's when he slipped and he landed on the top of his head. and sadly it paralyzed him. And Sabu had said this. He said it didn't kill him. He said it was worse. He said it paralyzed him. Um, he Hayabusa, that ended his career, and then sadly, 4 months later, Shoichi Arai had announced that FMW was closing. They'd had to file bankruptcy. Come to find out, he was in a lot of debt. I don't know the exact dollar amount. Um, I believe Ricky Fuji had said that he would go and ask for money and or ask for his paycheck because they weren't getting paid. Um, thank God they didn't get bounce checks like Herb Abrams and Paul Heyman did. Um, actually, I've heard that about Heyman. I've had some wrestlers have mentioned it, but if you know about Herb Abrams UWF, then you know you've heard a lot about the infamous bounce checks that Abrams was notorious for. Um, but they weren't. Ricky Fuji had said, he would go up to Shoichi Arai for money. He said, wait till tomorrow, etc. That type of stuff. Um, Apparently, he owed a lot of money to the Yakuza. For those of you that don't know what the Yakuza is, I'll preface it like this. They're Japan's version of the Sopranos, basically. Japanese mafia. Um, Mick Foley on that Dark Side episode had said that he had dinner with um, there was an individual that sat at his table, but he was missing his pinky, and usually that was a indicator that somebody was in the yakuza. Um, Rumor had it that Arai owed several yakuza money. Um, Shoichi's daughter, her name was Shell, appeared in that Dark Side episode, and she had said that he was having to go through the family money, like basically for the bills, money is used to pay the bills and whatnot, just so I guess they could, he could pay the wrestlers, and, pay the rent for the building, etc. But it got so bad with the debt that he accumulated for the yakuza that they had come into the house, changed the locks, etc. Um, but Arai had taken out a life insurance policy. I don't know the exact dollar amount, but he had taken out a life insurance policy because in the event of his death, he had hoped it'd be enough money to pay off the yakuza and leave his family alone. Well, in May of '02, so this is 3 months after FMW shut down, Mr. Arai took his life, hung himself. Unfortunately, the money from his life insurance policy was not enough to pay off the Yakuza. Eventually, they did get paid off. Um, but, I really, really felt bad for the man, felt bad for his family. Um, I won't go into details, but I've lost a relative to suicide. Um, and I'm sure if anybody listening to this, I'm sure you have dealt with that too, with a relative committing suicide. If you haven't, I hope you never have to deal with it. It sucks, big time. Um, I'll give Mr. Arai credit. He may not have been a businessman or a promoter, but he tried. He tried to keep something going. Unfortunately, this was one of them things where he was really in over his head. Um, but it's that's not his fault. Um, but um, maybe things again would have been different had he took Fuyuki's advice and maybe rebranded to World Entertainment Wrestling. He might still be here with us. I don't know. Um, Hayabusa, um, sadly, he passed away in 2016. He was 47 years old. He passed away due to an aneurysm. He left behind two daughters. One of his daughters actually um, was on the FMW episode for Dark Side of the Ring. And Hayabusa didn't give up. He did. The man did walk again. Um, he did have to use hand crutches, but the man did walk again. There was a video came out in 2015, and it was basically his final walk to the ring. Um, I don't really know the context of like if it was like a Hall of Fame ceremony or whatever, but they played his music. If you ever get a chance, look up Hayabusa's theme and just listen to it. It's awesome. Starts off with an acoustic guitar, kind of gives off. I think that might have been kind of paying homage to the luchador style that he learned in Mexico. But as you listen to the music, it's instrumental, obviously, but it's just I don't know, something about it's just really amazing. But they played his theme, and he um, he was at the top of this stage, and he kind of struggles, but even let me backtrack here. He's wearing his mask, which I mean, heck, for any wrestling appearance, he wore his mask. He um, apparently he did do an interview for RF Video, and I have not been able to find the whole thing on YouTube, but that's how I found out he wasn't a big fan of Onita. It had like a saw like maybe had like maybe 12 minutes of footage, so it's kind of like a preview video. Um, but anyways, he was wearing his mask. He's wearing a tuxedo. Well, not take the back one, a tuxedo, but he was wearing a three-piece suit. He kind of struggles at first, but um, he gets up. He's walking with his crutches or his hand crutch, and he gets into the ring. Um, Quite a few people were in attendance for this event. Tenru was there. I want to say the great Muda, Keiji Muto, the great Sasuke, um, Mr. Ganosuke, which they were rivals in FMW, but they broke into the business together, and they were actually really good friends. And Jinsei Shinsaki. Um, if you don't know who that is, if you followed WWF back in the mid '90s, he wrestled as the character Hakushi, and he had some really great matches with Bret Hart. I actually saw a cage match that him and Bret Hart had in July of '95 over in Evansville, Indiana. It was a dark match, which I didn't know it was a dark match at the time, but the event I went to was for like a double shot taping for Superstars. And yeah, that was the very last match, the cage match, and it was incredible to behold. But Shinzaki was a great wrestler. Um, Him and Hayabusa actually wrestled a tag team match back in '98 for ECW. They took on RVD and Sabu. It was a tag team championship match. RVD and Sabu won, but great match, very athletic match. I'll give that a shout out as well. Look that up on YouTube if you get a chance. But the man that was supposed to be paralyzed, never be able to walk again, he did walk again. I mean, so that was by the grace of God, that was a miracle in and of itself. Um, I don't know. I'm not a doctor, obviously. I don't know much about brain aneurysms, but um, it's just really sad. And he was so young, and it sucks now. And it sucks because you hear so much of a lot of wrestlers dying at such a young age, but his was a totally different scenario. I mean, it wasn't because of a drug overdose or he committed suicide or anything. It was a brain aneurysm that got him. Um, I will tell you this, if you didn't know this. So in '98, after Onita left FMW, he was basically told to leave. Um, he basically went into freelance work or independent. Well, I mean, all wrestlers are independent contractors, but um, he wrestled for various promotions from '98 to present. Um, he he did show up at New Japan Pro Wrestling. He did make an appearance for ECW. Um, Apparently, Kodo Fuyuki did start a promotion after FMW shut, so he did bring World Entertainment Wrestling, but by this point, FMW had shut. Shoichi Arai had committed suicide. Um, Onita did appear for that promotion. Um, he's appeared for Osaka Pro Wrestling, Pro Wrestling 01, Pro Wrestling Noah. Um, I know he has made appearances stateside as well for death matches. Um, there were several videos on YouTube where he was they were promoting matches with him and a fella named Matt Tremont. I don't know a lot about Matt Tremont. I'm sorry to say, uh, but I do know that he did wrestle for Combat Zone Wrestling and Game Changer Wrestling. Um, but I've actually never watched his matches, so to speak. Sounds like I probably ought to look that up myself and watch some of their matches. Um, in 2021, actually, let me backtrack. Um, in 2017, Onita retired for Almighty. This would be his third time. He came out of retirement in October of 2018, and that's when he had his match with Matt Tremont. Um, in 2021, he resurrected FMW with a promotion called FMWE, the E standing for Explosion. Um, and currently today, Onita still wrestles, and the man is 67 years old. Um, I don't know what y'all's take is on that. You know, I some people have argued about age limits in wrestling. I think Vince Russo at one time. can't even believe I'm plugging that name again. I'm not the biggest Russo fan. Um, now, in regards to the wrestling business, now me and him share the same religious beliefs, so therefore, I mean, I'll agree with him on that. But in regards to wrestling, hell no. Um, and I can't even believe I'm going to mention Dave Meltzer's name, but because I'm not a big fan of Meltzer. But I got to agree with Meltzer. Russo's done more harm to the wrestling business than good. Um, I'm sure you're like me and believe that Russo killed WCW. But anyways, Russo believed that anyone older than 35 or 40 years old shouldn't be in the business. And supposedly, now I heard Kevin Nash say this in a U shoot that he had with Sean Oliver. Supposedly, Paul Heyman said that after 35, you shouldn't be in the business. Now, I, that's just hearsay. I've never heard Russo or Heyman say that, so I can't say for certain. Now, if the rumors are true, who are they to say? I mean, hell, Russo still appears on Dark Side of the Ring episodes and stuff, and that's wrestling. That's part of the wrestling business. Heyman is still in the wrestling business, and I'm not knocking Paul Heyman. Paul Heyman's got a great mind for the business, and he knows his shit. And he's a. I mean, he saw something in Brock Lesnar. He saw something in CM Punk. I mean, hell, the man helped Roman Reigns. I mean, as Roman's manager, get this big, massive career resurgence and really be the help him become the guy. Um, but anyways, um, me personally, I mean, Onita's old enough to be my father. Actually, my father is actually 67 years old himself. Um, Me personally, I wouldn't want my father doing death matches at that age. Onita still does that style of wrestling. Um, you know, I've heard that some folks that have been in the well, take for instance the late Fabulous Moolah. She didn't know when to quit, and I think this is kind of the thing with Mr. Onita is that he just doesn't know when to quit. Um, Again, I'm not knocking the guy. I mean, hell, Ric Flair had his last match, quote unquote last match when he was in his, at age 70, 70 something, late 60s, early 70s. Um, I don't know. I don't know where you folks stand on that. I'm not saying there should be an age limit, you know, for or in regards to how long people should be in the business, but I think for Onita's sake, it might be best for him to maybe step away, because he is getting up there in age, and you know, God forbid one of those death matches that he's in, something goes wrong, and that could be it for him. But that's pretty much my take on FMW. I'm not going to call it garbage wrestling. I know Cornette would say it's garbage wrestling. Um, from 89 to 95, he would have probably said it was garbage wrestling. But then once ownership had switched, it focused more on wrestling than it did the death matches. Um, I, I think it was a great thing that Onita started that company because, it gave guys another place to work at in Japan. I mean, it's a shame what happened to Hayabusa. It's a shame that the original company, had to shut down after. Let's see. I know my math sucks. Around 12 to 13. It wasn't quite 13 years, but it was pretty close to 13 years. I know Onita had a reputation for being selfish and being an egomaniac, according to some wrestlers. But again, I've never met the man, so can't really say for certain. I know Terry Funk mentioned in that time bomb match that he had in '93 with Onita that there was 40, 50,000 people. So, and I'm not really sure what ticket prices were back then in Japan, but he said they made a lot of money and he only got paid like $5,000. I mean, come on. I mean, that's chump change. I mean, could have paid them. I mean, fuck. Um, when Chris Jericho had his match at Wrestle Kingdom with Kenny Omega, if you haven't seen that match, go watch that one. Incredible match. Um, hell, Jericho made 1.5 million just for that one match. I mean, hell, Terry could. I mean, back in the early '90s, man, he could have paid him at least 500 grand. Especially considering it was the main event match. But that's just my take on that. Um, if you do listen to this podcast, it is much appreciated, and hopefully you learned something. I hope you learned something. I hope you enjoyed it. All those matches I listed, I do hope you do give it a listen to, or give it a watch. Obviously not at the same time, but kind of space it out. Also, if you happen to have a Hulu subscription or a Disney Plus bundle with Hulu, you can see Dark Side of the Ring on that. If you happen to have a Roku and you have the app for the Roku channel, I know they had the first two seasons. They may have added the third season by now, but I'm not really for certain. Um, look that Dark Side of the Ring episode up. Um, you can also look up. Um, it's called Onita's FMW, Pioneering the Frontier. Not sure who the narrator was, but I swear to God, it sounded like Jesse the Body Ventura once you listen to it. And then also you can look up the rise and fall of FMW on YouTube. From I cannot remember. I think I said Cultaholic Wrestling, but it might have been What Culture. No, no, it's Cultaholic Wrestling that did that video. But the rise and fall of FMW, that's about a 30-minute video. The first video I mentioned, that's about a 45-minute video. Um, there is also videos about the history of FMW, and they're very, very much detailed and gives a lot more information on the company than what I've done. You can check them out. Very informative. Really really taught me a lot. Um, you could also give those a listen to as well. And I'm not quite sure what my next podcast will be. I still need to reach out to some of my buddies from the local independent promotion I'm a part of. If you happen to listen to this and you are in the Hopkins Webster County area, I work with a promotion called New Age Wrestling Entertainment. They are based out of Nebo, Kentucky. I've been involved with that promotion since April of last year. I am actually one of the commentators. Um, it's family friendly. The next show is going to be March the 8th at the Nebo Community Center in Nebo, Kentucky. The show will start at 7 p.m. Doors will open around 6 or 6:30. Ticket prices are $8 a person. They do offer concessions as well. Uh, Concessions are not very expensive. They do serve hot dogs. They've served chips, nachos. They have drinks, and every wrestler for that promotion they're an awesome group of individuals. They they really love wrestling, and one of the founders was a coworker of mine. He's the one that actually got me into the business. Him and one of his partners of the promotion. gave me my break in the business. No, I'm not a wrestler. I'm 39 years old. I'll be 40 in December. Um, but if you if you were in the Hopkins Webster County area, or even Muhlenberg, or just anywhere close to Nebo, please come by and come see us. We'd love to have you. Um, well, I'm going to sign off. I can. I'm going to sign off. I'm not sure when I will do my next episode. I work Wednesday night through Friday night, 6 p.m. to 6:30 a.m. So I might do one again tomorrow night. May not be until the weekend. We'll just see what happens, and I'll either do a shoot interview um, with wanting to do one with a fella named Justin Stiles. He's actually the one that gave me my break in the business. Great guy. Um, me and him would me and him would sit on breaks and just talk nothing but wrestling. And I'll plug him in this. If he ever listens to this, he'll get the reference. But I used to make a joke to him at work that if he made another mistake, I was going to call Mr. Onita and have him booked in a death match and all that. And just our little inside joke. Nobody else got it, but we did. And Justin, he's a hell of a guy. He's a brother to me, and one of my best friends. But like I said, if I do another episode, I may see about doing a shoot interview with him. We have talked about it before. Hopefully, I can maybe get him down to my house because I do this at my house. I don't have no studio. Hell, I bought equipment from Amazon for like $60 to podcast. I've got a laptop that I record my episodes on. I have a room in my house that used to be a bedroom. I've now kind of turned into a man cave slash office. Um, hopefully I can get him here to my house at some point. We can do an episode. I really, really think y'all would enjoy it. It wouldn't be like, I mean, it'd be kind of the same essence of RF video or um, kayfabe commentaries, shit like that. Not saying that they're shit, but just, hopefully you get the concept. But I'd like to get him in here and see, or and as I said in the first episode, I'm not a professional podcaster. You can obviously tell by listening to me. But again, this is something that I really have a passion about, and um, I know that's not the same as listening to Jim Cornette, Vince Russo, Sean Oliver, or even the wrestlers of the golden era, that now have their own podcasts, like Jake Roberts, Hacksaw Jim Duggan, Honky Tonk Man, The Undertaker, you know. Um, but I'm just a simple guy that works an everyday job, and um, someone that really want to get involved in podcasting. Now I'm making this dream happen. So, anyways, if I don't do a shoot interview, I may do my next episode on probably one of the territories. May do one on the AWA. Really thought about doing one on Portland wrestling. I've heard a lot about that territory, but we'll just see what happens. So, anyways, thank you again for listening. If you have any suggestions for any episodes you would like for me to have, please let me know. And this is Grizzly Andrew signing off. Take care and God bless.